Hello again. Welcome to what is actually the last lecture on Python. We're keeping this week kind of light lecture-wise because we want to make sure that you have enough time to work on the project. Also, we just don't want to overwhelm you. We're trying to give you a taste of what Python is like without you just going completely crazy with it. I promise, there's a lot more to programming than we're going to get to in just these 2 weeks of lectures, and it can be really fun. So if you are enjoying it, do consider taking the intro programming course. So we already looked at if-else statements, which are one way to control how a program runs, and now we're going to look at while loops. So I already talked, programs are sequential. They do always start at the top and then go down. In the last lecture about if-else, I said, sometimes you skip code. And so I'm expanding on that whole sequential thing a little bit more now because a loop allows you to repeat a section of code until the code is ready to move on. So programs still start at the top and they keep going down, but sometimes they'll reach a point where they're like, all right, well, we're gonna, go back up a few lines and then kind of keep going. Python actually has two kinds of loops. One is called a while loop and one is called a for loop. We're only going to learn about while loops this time. So while loops also use Boolean statements, just like if-else statements. So here I have a sample while loop. And just take a look at it for a second and see if you can kind of figure out what is maybe going on here. So you can see that in the first line I have I equals 1. So that should look kind of familiar to you, right? So you've got I, which is I equals 1, like I has to be a variable name because it's to the left of an equal sign, and then to the right of the equal sign is the number 1, so you know that I is being assigned the value 1. It's an int. That's all that's happening in that line. And then we get to something totally new. Actually, let's skip the thing that's totally new, and let's look at the two other lines first. So after that colon, indented, we have print I. Well, that's going to print the value of I. And then the next thing you haven't seen before, but let's just take a look at it. So we've got I equals, so alright, I is getting a value. It already had one, but now it's getting a new one. That's okay, we can update our variables. And to the right it says I plus 1. So what's going to happen is Python's going to go in and it's going to say, okay, I plus 1. Well, what's the current value of I? And the first time we go through this, so right, I equals 1. So we're going to plug in 1 for this I. So we're going to get 1 plus 1. That's 2. And so we're going to assign the value 2 back to I. So I is getting updated and it's getting what we call incremented. So the 1 is being added to it. So its value increases a little bit and then we go, okay, now it's 2. So out of the 4 lines of code on this page, you're actually familiar with 3 of them. That one line that we don't know, but we haven't seen before. So we've got while I less than 10, and then a colon. All right, well, I less than 10, that's a Boolean statement. You've seen those before. You worked with if-else statements. And the colon means that whatever comes next is going to be indented. So all that we're saying here is that as long as it's true that I is less than 10, we're going to go into the loop and do what the loop says, and then we're going to go back to the top of the loop, and we're going to check to see if this is still true, and then we're going to go around again. So this time I actually will type that code into Python for you, so you can see what that does. So while loops are sometimes a little bit less intuitive than if statements. So I equals 1, while I less than 10, and you can see it's automatically indenting for me. So I'm going to print I, and then I'm going to say I equals I plus 1. So I'm going to save that, and I'm going to run it. And what's going to happen is it's going to print the numbers from 1 to 9. Wait a minute, 1 to 9, what's going on here? Well, basically what happens is we start off with I equals 1, right? And then while I is less than 10. So when we first begin, I is 1, 1 is less than 10, so this is true. And as long as it's true, we go into the loop and start running. Executing is such a weird word. So we're going to print I, which is 1, and then we're going to update I. So I equals I plus 1, like I said, this I gets replaced with the current value of I, which is 1. This whole thing becomes 1 plus 1, which is 2, and then 2 gets assigned to I. So as we go through this loop, I's value is being updated every time. So we go back to the top of the loop and we say, well, while I is less than 10. Well, I is currently 2 now. Remember, it's been updated. It's not 1 anymore, it's 2. So is 2 less than 10? Well, yeah, it's still a small number, right? So while 2 is less than 10, all right, that is true. So we're going to go in the loop, and we're going to print 2, and then we're going to increment I to become 3. And we're just going to keep going until this statement is no longer true. So at some point, so we get to I equals 9, right? So I is 9, so we say while 9 is less than 10, that is true. We go in the loop, we print 9, and then I equals 9 plus 1, so I becomes 10. We go back to the top of the loop, and we say while 10 is less than 10. Well, hold on a second, 10 is not less than 10. 10 is equal to 10, but it's not less than 10. So now that that statement is no longer true, the loop stops. And we say, all right, we're done. So if you wanted a little bit of proof of that, we could put in a print statement here that says, like, done. So that print statement is outside of the loop because it's not indented with the rest of the things that come after that colon. And so we can save that and run it. And you'll see that we print the numbers 1 through 9, and it's only after we get to after we leave the loop that done gets printed. It's not printed every time because it's outside of the loop. So it's kind of a key thing to understand there. Inside the loop, things repeat. Outside the loop, things only happen the one time, unless they're in another loop. But, that's different, obviously. So that actually took a little bit longer to explain. I don't want this to go on for too long, so I'm actually going to pause here and suggest that you go type this code in, play around, play with it a little bit, see if you can get it to maybe print only even numbers or print up until 20 or something like that. So modify the loop a little bit, play around with it, just make sure that it works for you, and then I will come back with the rest of the slides. All right?